I, 28F, am ready to leave my husband, 29M, after what he said during a fight about his phone addiction. Could I be overreacting? My husband has an insane phone addiction that's fueled by his video games. When he's not playing video games, he pretends to be involved in our family. We have a 2-year-old child. By sitting on his phone on the couch texting his Discord about video games. Or he's on YouTube watching hack tutorials and streams. But he's not playing, so what am I so mad about? We used to watch shows together, comment on what's going on, laugh at the jokes. We used to take rides at night and talk in the car. Granted, with a child, it's much harder for us to get out. But even after I spend 20 minutes looking for something for us to watch together, he'll be in his phone screen within 5 minutes. I asked him to play a card game with me a few nights ago, and he agreed, but by the time our child went to sleep, he was over the idea and wanted to play video games. It was one of my final attempts at just trying to spend time together, and I honestly went to the bedroom alone and cried. I spend every single night going to bed alone because he gets on to play video games. What's going on with intimacy, then you might ask? I'll get there. Any message he gets from his video game buddies is more interesting than anything we could be doing. He could have our child pulling on him looking for attention, and he will actually suck his teeth if he's too deep into watching a video. This has gotten to the point the last few months that I make very sly and irritated comments about his phone. He gets extremely defensive and will even throw it, but if I so much as get up to go pee, by the time I come back he's immersed in it again. Like he couldn't fucking WAITTT for the moment I got up, so he could snatch it back up again. Sometimes in the middle of an actual climax in a movie, I will suddenly hear Motorfest racing sounds coming from his phone because there he is sneaking a YouTube video in mid-movie. When I try to start a convo or tell him something I heard or saw, he can never just put his phone down and say, "Oh yeah, tell me about it." He will actually rush me through my story by rolling his eyes and saying, almost like, "Get on with it." Phone still unlocked in his hand, just waiting for the moment I speak my last word, and the burden of listening is off his plate. At this point, I've grown extremely unattracted to him. He does the bare minimum for the house because he's always so busy playing video games on his phone or napping in the middle of the day because he stayed up too late playing. Just today, he left me with the baby for 4 hours to nap, and when he finally returned to the living room, he laid on the couch on his phone, while the baby climbed all over me. I made another sly comment and told the baby to go play with Daddy, please, since he hasn't seen him a few hours. This led to him sucking his teeth, saying, "What do you want me to do?" So naturally, I just ended up feeling nothing towards him lately. He's becoming a burden more than anything. Just another mess maker to clean up after. I haven't wanted to have sex at all. How could I want to have sex after a day of watching him do absolutely nothing but sit on his phone and PS5 ignoring us, and then napping? After a day of cleaning and tending to the baby, and cutting a myriad of different fucking fruits all fucking day. Of course I don't want to fuck him, bro. Genuinely, I laid into him today after his nap. I let it all out. And a few nights ago, he brought up that we don't fuck, and I didn't really respond, but today I said, how the fuck could I even want to? You're useless. You're here but never present. You're just a piece of fucking furniture here at this point. What about the whole nothing you contribute is supposed to make me want to get wet for you? Also, when? Should I seduce you for 5 minutes real quick before you turn your PS5 on, and I go fuck off alone in the bedroom like every other night? How sexy. Anyway, he said, "Okay, well, don't be surprised when I fuck someone else then." Not to mention that was a disgusting fucking thing to say and a deal breaker for me, but he actually made all of this MY fault. Didn't even address the issue at hand. Flipped it on me, being it that I'm already fully experiencing it towards him. That was kind of the cherry on top. This isn't even fixable at this point, is it? What would you even do in a situation like this? Story 2. My 40F good guy husband 40M is making a bad judgment call that has ruined our relationship. How do I show him the error of his ways? Very long story short, my husband of 15 years became suspicious of me about 5 years ago. During conflict, he began accusing me of lying frequently and adopted all sorts of passive-aggressive behaviors. Prior to this, our bond was strong. We adored each other. I used to think we had something of a once-in-a-lifetime love story. I loved his brain. We had an awesome sex life, and he was a selfless lover, always prioritizing my pleasure. Hearing what he was reading or working on used to make my heart so happy. So as the conflict kept coming, I remember being confused mostly, but also just boiling angry when he began behaving in ways I would have sworn were beneath him. Over time, he started to not like our best friends, my lifelong bestie Jane, who was my maid of honor, and her husband Joe, saying we were spending too much time together. We would see them frequently. Our kids grew up like cousins. Jane has been at all my family gatherings since we were teenagers. There is so much history. In 2022, I began meeting Joe at the gym in the mornings. My relationship with my husband kept going down the toilet, but I was completely shocked when one day, during a time I was trying to apologize and be accountable for what I could be accountable for in terms of our dysfunction, he blew my mind when he suggested I was having an affair with Joe. Joe had never once crossed a boundary with me, nor I with Joe. We've loved each other like brother and sister ever since he became part of Jane's life. He also adored and was a great friend to my husband John. Names all changed, obviously. John couldn't be convinced nothing ever happened and began going through my phone and demanding I don't text Joe anymore. At first I pushed back, BC John never exerted this level of control before, and I hated it, and it wasn't warranted. But every area of my life became more under surveillance, and he began believing he found evidence. I told him he wasn't allowed to make the calls of who I spoke to. My philosophy was pretty much like, geez, dude, it's 2023. Get over this, and I'm allowed to text guys and still be a faithful and loyal wife. John sidestepped over me and told Joe not to text me anymore, which made me live it on principle. Joe's relationship to mine wasn't ever more than a friend, but I felt John was fracturing our marriage because he wasn't respecting my boundaries. John began to trash talk our friends. Joe and Jane began being concerned, rightfully, and tried to intervene. We sat down, all four of us, and John downplayed everything. John went to the church and asked for support. The men in church affirmed him something was suspicious and that I was too entangled in my friends' lives. After my begging, he went to therapy and told me his therapist said I was emotionally abusive. I kept getting more angry and honestly not doing great handling the loss of control and the accusations. I took a step back. I didn't like who I was becoming. I always felt I had control over my emotions, but felt myself slipping in all the areas. Even if I could mask it internally, it felt like I was always frantic and agitated. I slowed my life way down, and I began therapy. I know for sure I am not perfect and had contributed to the strife. It was easy for me to see my own shortcomings, and I wanted to get help in recognizing my own flaws. Despite this, things at home kept getting worse. At one point, I gave up Joe and Jane and stopped responding to them or contacting them. To try to show John the first chose him, but it still was a chaotic mess. Now, fast forward to present day. I live separately. The amount of accusations that have come up have just piled one on top of the other. I adore my husband, and I'm still so confused about everything that went down, but my mental health spiraled beyond belief, and I had to get away from him. I felt constant attack, shame, and anxiety around him. When I wasn't under suspicion, I was being caught. All the while hearing how Joe is a terrible friend. Jane isn't on all of it, an accomplice to hiding the affair, and I'm a selfish, abusive person. Which, frankly, I can be selfish, but I don't think I'm abusive, but I will say, my reactions became explosive there for a while. I need to pause briefly to say I've been friends with the same crew of people for 25 years. I have close, meaningful friendships, and John now has all new friends, and is starting to tell me our kids can't be around our friends' kids, BC. They're all bad influences. His new friends' kids are okay, though. Here's the thing. John is a good man. He is kind, friendly. I always loved his sense of humor. All of that is gone between us, but I still cannot let myself let go of the marriage. I stayed with him for 3 days over the holiday, and he awoke one night sure he saw me swipe my phone close real quick after sending someone a selfie of me. That didn't happen. Since then, he is trying to tell me he trusts me, but he has also affirmed several times that he knows what he saw. John is functional in every part of his life except for this paranoia that he has with me. No amount of explaining have been able to break through, and I can't be around him for more than 24 hours without the tension boiling and my own emotional state derailing. The move from our family home saved my mental health. My life quickly settled into functional healing once I got a separate apartment. Within a few months, John slowly ramped up pursuing me again. He's great at romance. He comes to my place and will start my car. He is a great dad. He jumps to help me with the kids. John keeps asking me to come back to our home, but he's still committed to this affair idea. He'll ask me to come home, and he even lays on a romance, and I fall for it. We have short, brief moments of confusing connection, and then it falls apart pretty quickly. If I'm near him, I shudder every time my phone rings when my friends text or call BC. It's like someone killed a puppy in a room with how he shuts down. Why can't I help him see? Why do I feel like such a creep for not being able to fix my marriage despite my